and roll in a little bit, you might learn something and choose to do something differently. For someone who might be sitting in this audience today, the message around destigmatizing mental health might actually change their life, it might actually even save their life. We don't often have many opportunities to talk about the not so great parts of ourselves, the parts that we feel shame about, the parts that we feel we have hold pain around. It's easier to talk about the super self, the things that we've done, the doer self, those external markers of being good enough. We don't often take off the mask and really show up as our full self. My biggest fear is that I'm gonna cry today, so if that happens, I apologize, but know that it's done because I really care about you guys and I want you to feel different and feel open to talking to people about things that might be going on in your inner world. So I'm dedicating the story that I'm gonna tell to those of you who might carry around a secret part of yourself that you think you have to keep to yourself for fear of being rejected by people. A part that you might, a truthful part of yourself that you feel shame about and you keep it hidden in the shadows. And I'm also dedicating this story to people that are no longer with us, who might have dealt with their own mental health challenges and decided that they couldn't bear the weight of it anymore. So know that I'm doing this for you guys. So, here I go. I didn't tell anyone what I was going to do today, so this is kind of a bit of a surprise. My name is Tasha Belix, and one thing that you don't know about me is I carry around a lot of stuff, as lots of us do. And so, in order to tell my story, of course I need to set up a blanket, because that's just how I start. Here we go. And so something that has had a profound impact on my life is I grew up in a house where there was addiction. So my dad, when I was in my mid-20s, died because of alcohol-related issues. But I was born into a house where my dad struggled with addiction, and it wasn't really a safe place for kids to be. And so when I was 3 years old and my little brother was 1.5 years old, my mom left my dad and brought us with her because she knew that we couldn't grow up to be healthy if we lived in a house with that kind of dysfunction. But that has had a profound impact on my life. And I can tell you guys, addiction is everywhere. There is no one in this world. Socioeconomic status doesn't protect you from it. And it really hurts people. When you live in a house where there's addiction, you learn to know when it's safe and when it's not safe. And no child should be in a place where the person that's supposed to keep them safe and take care of them is also the person that scares them. And so that is one piece of my story. Another one is that I'm really freaking competitive. And so when I was about 5 years old, I'm thinking this was a 5-year-old memory anyways, there was a game that we used to play in my kindergarten class, and it was the magic bag. You'd reach into it and you kind of guess what was in there. And so I remember putting my hand in there, and I love this game because I was super good at it. Oh, I want to play this game. And one day I got stumped. I put my hand in the bag. There was something kind of a little bit moist and a little bit cool and kind of fluffy, and I could not figure out what it was. It turned out to be alfalfa sprouts. Who would have thought? But I went home really mad at myself that I didn't get it right. And I remember that because it was sort of the start of me putting a lot of pressure on myself to be able to figure out answers to really hard questions. So that one goes down. And then you guys probably know about Terry Fox. We go on runs to celebrate him every year. Well, when my brother was in grade 2 and I was in grade 3, Terry Fox was running across Canada. He was dying of cancer at that time. And when Terry Fox died, it was the first time that my brother started showing signs of major depression. So he would have been 7 years old, and that was when my life really started to change, because that's when he got diagnosed as having his first major depressive episode. And it really was boiled down to him questioning how there could ever be a God if something so sad could happen to somebody that was so good. My brother went on to have other depressive episodes and other things that I'll tell you about in a moment. At the same time that my brother was really struggling, this is how it often works in families. When one person is struggling, the other person may overachieve. So there was a running competition at my school at that time. Grades 6 and 7 students were invited to run a 50K run, 1 kilometer a day to get 50 kilometers. And so I heard about this, and of course, being me, I asked the principal why someone in grade 3 wasn't able to do the same thing. And so, as my brother was really depressed, I started running 50K. And so at lunchtime I would head out. I talked my friends into doing it for about 2 or 3 recesses. They got bored and wanted to play on the swings. But I would put my shoes on and run along the endowment lands in Vancouver, touch a post, come back to the school, and mark that I had done my run. And so I very proudly earned my 50K t-shirt because I was a little kid that decided to kind of, I think, put my pain into something that made sense. I needed to move it through my body. I would say this, you guys may not be psychologists, you might never want to be, that's fine. If you see an 8-year-old that's choosing to run at lunch hour instead of playing with their friends, you might want to ask if they're doing okay. And that sort of set up a theme in my life for sure. As my brother, we went through the teen years, my brother started to show different signs of mental health. Not only did he have a low mood, he started to get very, very paranoid about things. He had a lot of trouble going to school and making it to school most days, and ended up quitting my school and just graduating with a grade 12 equivalent, doing online schooling. But he was always an incredibly gifted artist and a poet, and he started at Emily Carr, pursuing a career in carving. That was really the medium that he liked to do the best. And so when I was about 20, I was at UBC studying psychology, and I got a phone call that my brother had had a psychotic episode. He had been very scared that people were coming to hurt him and hurt our family. He got very violent at my home. The police picked him up, took him to the hospital, and the phone call that I was getting was letting me know that the diagnosis that he had, it's called schizoaffectiveness disorder. So he met criteria for schizophrenia as well as criteria for bipolar disorder. And the hard part about managing this mental illness is that when you're in low periods, the medication that helps up your mood is also the medication that gets you to be a place where you're kind of psychotic. And so over his 20s, he had ups and downs, lots of ups and downs in his mental health. And I can tell you, that wasn't happening to me, but it was happening to me. And so I was studying psychology. And I started my master's program, and I learned about Adlerian psychology, and I studied at the University of Chicago. And Adler and Freud, you probably have heard of Freud before, would sit around in Vienna in a coffee shop smoking cigarettes, talking about how to make people healthy. And the coolest part, I think, about what Adler kind of came out with, and one of his, a core value that he would hold, is that we all need to belong. If we have a place where we're seen and heard for who we are, we're gonna feel okay in this world. But when we feel like we're an outsider, like we can't show up as our true self, that's where dysfunction and disease can start. And so Adler had a profound impact on my life and really changed how my career was the trajectory it was gonna go on. So I worked with street youth. So when you have hard stuff in your family, it's great to want to be a superwoman and kind of solve big problems. I worked with street youth that were actually recruited into the sex trade. I was gonna help keep those kids safe. Then I worked with drug and alcohol addiction, taking youth that were abusing drugs and alcohol out to the woods, hiking mountains and realizing sort of who they were and the beautiful parts about them. My world took me to work with high-achieving students. I had a phone call about 1.5 years ago from a former gold medalist Olympic athlete who said, "Tasha, I need you to help us with our organization because girls are dropping out of sports at a higher rate than ever before, and some of the superpower parts of us, inside we still don't know kind of who we are, and we need to have more of those conversations so that we have a really healthy group of young people that are going to lead our planet." And there are some themes that kind of are within all those stories. So whether you're an Olympic athlete, whether you're someone who's a homeless youth that lives on the streets of Calgary, whether you're a person that is a 96% student that doesn't think that you're good enough, whether you're me and you're trying to make amends for something that's not so nice in your family, there's themes that kind of connect us in all those stories. And sort of three things that I can kind of think about. One of them is pain is pain. It doesn't matter if it's physical, if someone kicks you in the leg, it hurts. And it doesn't matter if it's pain that hits your heart, it hurts and we want it gone. Another piece is that problems, when they're kept in isolation, they do not get better. And the last one is that we actually need other people in order to make sense of what's going on in our world. We cannot do it by ourselves. So we're at where we are today. We hear lots about mental health. Some issues are on the rise that we've never seen before. So that problem that I started my career trying to solve is changing. And it's actually kind of makes me sad, and it kind of makes me a bit irritated and a bit scared. So we know that the rates of depression and anxiety are on the rise in the teen population. We know that by the time girls graduate from high school in Canada, 1 in 3 will have struggled with depression, anxiety, or an eating disorder. Boys are 2 times as likely as girls to tune out and numb out using drugs and alcohol. Video games are in there nowadays too. 24% of girls will use self-harm before they graduate from high school. What's reported is that it's about 8% of boys. Now, boys don't totally get off the hook here. If you're a young man, you're 5 times more likely than a woman to complete suicide. And a new piece of information that I just heard from Mr. Clark last week is that parents that were polled, 40% of them said that they wouldn't talk to their family doctor or their family if they thought their child was struggling with mental health issues. And so this is a part that makes me go, what's going on? If we don't talk about stuff, how are we ever going to solve this problem? And so the piece that I think might be the pathway, I guess, for things to change and for things to be on a better path, on a better trajectory, is this. Is simply that we have to listen. And we have to listen in a way that we don't always do when we're walking through the hallways. We need to listen not just with our ears, but we need to listen with our hearts. Because if we have a chance to stop and slow down and really hear someone's story, we're going to meet them with love. We're going to meet them in a place where we're going to be compassionate towards them, and we can't help but treat them with respect. You guys, my name is Tasha Belix, and I'm really glad to properly introduce myself to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you again, Ms. Belix.
You're welcome.
For a powerful intro to our assembly. The reason we're having this assembly today is because we have no trouble talking about our physical ailments, our challenges, our fitness, our health, physically. But when it comes to the mental wellness, which is so important, we tend to mask it, pretend everything's okay, smile. And we want us to start that conversation. And I'm super happy to have Kate and Geoff join us today. And I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves, give us a little bit of background as to who they were as students at Strath, what they're doing now in the world, and the challenges they face. Kate, you want to start?
Sure, absolutely. Thanks so much, Larry, and that was a wonderful introduction to this really, really important topic. I came to STS in grade 7 and graduated in 2010 with Geoff here. And I was in the full International Baccalaureate program. And I know if you guys are in it, it's incredibly stressful, it's incredibly challenging, and I would classify myself as an overachiever, that's for sure. I took physics and chemistry and did my extended essay in physics. I know it sounds crazy. It was crazy. But I graduated and I went to the University of Waterloo for environment and business with a minor in economics. And once I graduated in 2010, it was a co-op work program, and so I went straight into my first job, or what is my job, at Deloitte, where I work in their sustainability and climate change team. So I help companies across Canada implement climate change related strategies and targets and help them really understand the impact of their organizations. Then last year, I went to do, or 2 years ago, I went to do a master's program in London, UK, at the University College London. in economics and policy of energy and the environment. So you may all be thinking, wow, that is a lot to have accomplished in the years since I graduated STS. And I assure you it really is. But what I really want to talk about, and Tasha here really emphasized, was that it's really easy for us to talk about all the great things that we've done. But inside, I actually am an anorexic. And it's something that I live with today. I don't believe you can be cured of that. It is just a frame of mind and a relationship with food. And so yeah, that's what I'm here to talk about today.
Thank you. Geoff?
Yeah, so my name's Geoff. I came to STS in grade 4 and kind of did everything that you could do here, I would say. I did everything from rugby to the musicals with Kate, and was really involved with art. I didn't take the full IB. I kind of took a peripheral path because I was not sure I could compete in the strenuous IB. I did a lot of art and special projects and that kind of thing. I graduated as valedictorian and was a prefect as well. And when I graduated, I also went to University of Waterloo for a program called Knowledge Integration. And I was supposed to translate to English, as Larry said. But it's a really cool program, and if you ever want to talk about it, it's essentially about how do we get diverse teams of experts and regular people to work together to solve complex problems. So it was an amazing experience at Waterloo, and since then I've had some issues which I'll get into, but I currently work at SAIT in fundraising, basically doing research to help find potential donors to build the buildings and fund the programs and this kind of thing. So what I've come to talk about today is that I suffer from bipolar disorder, bipolar schizoaffective disorder. So kind of Tasha mentioned it before, but basically, as she mentioned, it's a lot of ups and downs in terms of a mood disorder, where you can have the darkest of depressions, but also these wild, exceptionally happy but destructive times, and then psychosis in between. So essentially, I know we're going to get into some questions, but from the time I graduated, I've been dealing with this in a more explicit way.
Thank you. Just really briefly, Tasha, we all feel happy, we all feel sad.
Mm-hmm.
How is bipolar different?
It would, well, I'm going to say you're the expert in this, but how would you say it's different than just feeling happy and sad? Because people do sometimes wonder that. I'm really moody. I'm really sad sometimes. I think I have bipolar disorder.
Yeah, so bipolar can be a little bit of a derogative term as well. Yes, you're acting up and down, that kind of thing. But when you actually suffer from it, it's like having the worst day of your life for weeks, and persisting over time where you can't get out of bed. You might have suicidal ideations. You might this kind of thing. And then the happy is mania, which is not really happy at all. It's like for me, it's if you ever watched The Truman Show, that movie. It's probably maybe a bit too old, but essentially that people are watching, conspiring to make something happen in your life that might be amazingly great, but is completely unrealistic and out of proportion, that kind of thing.
Okay, good, thanks. Kate, can you identify when you really knew you had an eating disorder?
Sure, yeah. I would say there really wasn't a specific moment when I realized I had an eating disorder, but it started really occurring or happening when I went out off to university, and I could finally be independent and feel like no one was watching what I was doing. And that's really when it started to spiral, when I could just do things by myself, like no one would care that I didn't eat breakfast or lunch and just had like vegetables and hummus for dinner. And that's still a recurring theme with me today, where I say this a lot to people, but like I need food is something that I need to do with people. I love going out to great restaurants to eat with people, and that's really one of the things that saved me is telling people that I like I like being social, eating socially with them. And I think that, yeah, just leaving home and not having someone to watch over me was really when it started to spiral down and I could be alone.
How about you, Jeff? When did you really notice there was something different, something not working?
Yeah, so in high school, I definitely started to have more kind of paranoid thoughts where I thought that everybody just hated me, that kind of thing, which was a very strange thought. I was at a great time in high school, this kind of thing. And then more mood swings that were more persistent over time. And it was in university where I started to have like real depressions over months at a time, a few times over the course of university, but I was really in denial about it because I felt that if I admitted to having this kind of deficiency or something like that, that I would not reach my potential, right? And that I would not be able to, that I would be having almost an excuse to not go forward. But I learned when I get into this, like that's definitely not the case. Seeking help is definitely the most important thing.
I have a question for you guys, and it's really how long before you sort of told someone or someone noticed that you were struggling and you finally sort of broke the silence?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would say that when the first time someone told me to seek help was actually my doctor, and the reason was that my anorexia had gone so far that my body was actually shutting down. My bodily functions weren't working, and so when I went to go see my doctor about this, she said, well, actually your body mass index is way below underweight. And so you need to go see a nutritionist, you need to go see, I was, like Jeff, really worried that someone would see me as insufficient and that I couldn't handle being perfect or trying to be perfect. And so yeah, it was really having to go to the doctor because it was so bad, and then they said that you should go see a nutritionist. And actually, interestingly, what I really appreciated was my doctor didn't tell me to go to a psychologist, which I thought was the worst thing. I really appreciate that she said actually a nutritionist could help you with this first, because I had told myself in my mind that a psychologist was just not okay.
Yeah, fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
There's lots of reasons we have for seeking support, right?
Yep.
And a piece of information around anorexia and eating disorders is that they actually have the highest rate of death because of that disorder out of any other mental health condition. Yeah, it's very serious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What about you, Jeff? In terms of,
how
how long
when,
before you sort of reached out and said, I need some help?
so finally, in a very, very low episode towards the end of my undergrad, my parents, my mom, encouraged me to go see a psychologist finally, and I kind of took some time to finally stop procrastinating about it and finally go and do it, which is the most important thing. And I went to the Waterloo psychologist, and I was diagnosed with major depressive and anxiety. But it was in the meantime that I actually had a fairly extreme episode where I was taken to the hospital and then diagnosed with bipolar disorder. So it's almost sometimes out of your control when you just have to be taken if it gets that bad, right? If people are not aware of the signs and symptoms ahead of time.
Maybe Jeff, you can continue on. What's the piece that kept you going through the most difficult times? Like what did you hold on to give you hope?
I'd definitely say my family has been a huge support through all of this. They've always been with me, and that's what's kept me going.
Okay, you're nodding your head.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. Family and in my case, friends as well. I really needed my friends' validation, I needed friends to tell me that I was beautiful and wonderful, even if I wasn't my target weight, whatever it was, friends and family, absolutely.
Good point, and Tash, I'm sure you concur. Lots of times is when we talk to you guys, one of the first things you say is, I don't want my parents to know. And often they're the ones that need to know to provide that support.
Absolutely. What do you wish that you had known then that you know now about how to take care of your mental health? Because this might be really helpful for the people in the audience that are in those teen years, right?
Yeah, that's a really great point. And I guess my answer in terms of anorexia, which it was also when I started having this eating disorder, I would cover it up by exercising like an incredible amount. And so I'd be running 19 kilometers, 20 kilometers almost every day and not eating. And so what I really wish I realized, and someone had told me, and this is why, again, I really went to a nutritionist, was because I needed to know that food actually makes your body work. And that's really the mental shift in perspective that I'm still working on. And I still need to convince myself is that food is energy. You need food to survive. You need food to be the best person that you can be. You need food for your brain to work. You need food to be as smart as we all know you are. And so I think that that's the one thing that I wish I had known.
Yeah, for me, I mean, sometimes, and this is always the case with design, is that the extreme case helps you design better for everybody. When you think about the extreme user, you can design for the regular or the more in-range user, this kind of thing. And so for me, I mean, I'm obviously an extreme case, but you know, one of the things about schizoaffective is that I mask the bipolar really, really well. So oftentimes I get turned away from the hospital when I need help the most. So it comes down to friends and family to support you, to recognize when something's going on, and to vouch for you. So what I'm saying is that don't be afraid to talk to your friends and family. I think that the stigma is getting reduced to a large degree, and they will recognize when things are going wrong more than anyone else, and vice versa for your friends to recognize signs. And I think a big thing is also, you know, do your research, do that little bit of first aid research. Mental health is a part of first aid too, and know the symptoms of some of the things. So when your friends, your family start to experience them, you know what to look out for, and you can raise early warning flags as well.
Whoever wants to answer first. Have your experiences, your mental health challenges, affected the choices you're making for your future?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I would say that in some ways I don't think I would be who I am today without being an anorexic, which I'm not sure how that sounds, but I wouldn't have discovered that as I said, that I love running. And so I think that in times of really difficult hardships, you can also find a silver lining and really and really try and grow stronger from your illness. And so I probably wouldn't be who I am today without it, but just in
That inner strength.
yeah, exactly.
That's a good point.
Yeah, the illness has definitely built up a great deal of inner strength and resilience, but also compassion for other people. You know, when you see people on the street especially, so many people are suffering from mental health issues which exacerbate their socioeconomic situation that is incredibly unfortunate. And so with that compassion, I think we can build better, better helps and safeguards for people. But for me, I mean, I have to be a lot more cautious in life now. I think that I had a lot bolder goals, but now I'm kind of more grounded into what is within my ability range.
Thank you. I love the point that you made around being compassionate towards people that we see in the street, and that we think back to everyone needs a place where they belong, often the people that we walk past on the street or we run across the road because they look scary are really the people that kind of, they need someone to smile at them more than anyone else. This is another question that was brought forward by the students of the school. What is your opinion of the portrayal of anorexia or bipolar disorder in the media?
Yeah, I can start. I'm sure we've all seen or heard on social media or the news the portrayal of anorexia as just people who are shallow and want to look better, who want to look thinner, who want to be beautiful, and that was certainly where it started for me, and where it ended was controlling food and controlling my exercise was the only way that I felt that I had control. And that's where I think the media doesn't really portray the deeper complexities of how an eating disorder can manifest itself. It's really, an eating disorder is just a way to manifest a different, in my case anyway, it's just a way to manifest a different issue, and that's the feeling of control and the feeling of helplessness. And so, yeah, I think that I think there is more to anorexia than just looking beautiful.
Yeah, that's not even really what it's about.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, no. Geoff, what about for you?
Yeah, so in the media, I'm not sure if you'd be aware of this, but a lot of, there's a kind of meme that bipolar people are very creative, right, and are, you know, that kind of thing, which is quite positive, right? You see, I don't know, you know Demi Lovato, she has bipolar disorder, but also Winston Churchill, Abraham Lincoln, Vincent van Gogh, a lot of people throughout history, writers, a lot of writers, poets, artists, this kind of thing. So that's great. I think there's maybe something to that, maybe not, but I think when you actually talk to people with the disorder, you know, there's just regular everyday issues, and it's hard when the aspiration is to be a creative genius, right, in the madness. You know, something's lost about the everyday and the realities of the day-to-day of living through just for regular people, depression and mania. So I think I'm not sure where to go with that issue.
Maybe more realistic.
Maybe more realistic.
Yeah. I know that we're kind of coming to the sort of the closing of the assembly, I think. And so if there was one message that you would want students to leave the assembly with, what would it be? And maybe all four of us can answer this question. But yeah, feel free to leave the show if you want.
I'd say the same thing, just kind of reiterate what I've said before. I'd really like everybody to leave here kind of with a curiosity about the basic first aid of mental health. I mean, we learned a lot about the first aid of basic, how do you deal with physical injuries. But I think it's 1/5 of people, right, come experience a mental health issue in their lifetime. So just recognize those. Just be moderately familiar with some of the things that are going on. You could really help someone. You could even save a life as well. And then I would say the other part is just be compassionate. And this is very cliche, but compassionate, because you never know what somebody's going through. So always, you know, be charitable in how you approach people.
Yeah, I would say I've got two key messages. One, Geoff said so eloquently, is just have empathy for everyone, really. Like, we're all going through our own inner challenges. We're all striving to be the best that we can be here, and Geoff and I know that as well. And the second thing that I would say is be proud to go get help. Don't be embarrassed, don't be ashamed. Really, and I think proud is the right word, really. Don't, be proud that you have the self-awareness and that you love yourself enough to go get help when you need to go get help. And that's the, yeah, I hope you take that away.
That empathy is a key word, but I would add, be kinder to yourselves. I think often we're so hard on ourselves, we think we deserve that being reprimanded, being hard on ourselves, when really you should be much more gentle with yourselves and get help. Talk to people and really listen to your friends. If they're seeming sad or different, really listen to them.
Right. And I will leave you just with the challenge of being a little bit more open around taking the mask off. It's really easy to look like you're perfect on the outside. It's definitely a piece that I've noticed since starting at this school, and I think it would be the same if I were at any other school in Calgary. People walk around with smiles on their face looking like they have everything together, and know that there is no shame whatsoever in saying, I'm not sure that I totally feel confident about this. If we meet each other being a little bit more honest about who we are, we can support the community to be really safe. We've talked about mental health diagnoses. There are lots of people that will never fit into the DSM, which is lovely, that still struggle. And so those are the conversations you want to have. Breaking the silence sooner is helpful. And so that's what I would encourage you, and to the adults in this room, lead by example. Take off a bit of that mask as well and be honest with the students in your hallways. Thank you.